What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Subjectively Correct, a movie podcast where two buddies discuss different movies on a theme each episode, and we have a good old time. I am Josh, and I'm joined by my mate Matt.
Hello.
And this particular episode I'm really excited for because this is one of my probably favorite topics that we could have picked at the moment. We are doing gothic as our theme, which, as I explained in the last episode, for me is very much a literary kind of thing. And interestingly, we both have films that were based on kind of classic gothic books. And they're both pretty old as well. A couple of black and whiteies, which is really cool. So I'm very excited to discuss the ins and outs of these movies. And I think I'm very pleased to say I think we both kind of hit the gothic theme quite well with our choices as well, I think. Though I was a bit worried about how it could go side to side. Like we also discussed last time, how gothic can often be just synonymous with horror or something like that, or, you know, have gothic elements but not really be what I would consider particularly gothic. But I think both of our films have hit the mark pretty accurately, for my money anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get that ball rolling.
Let's go.
And Matt, why don't you tell us about the very classic movie? We've almost hit the anniversary of it in the real world.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, tell us all about
shit.
it. What'd you bring?
Yeah, my pick for this was The Man Who Laughs, released in 1928. Yeah, you're right. We're just 3 years away from the 100-year anniversary.
Yeah.
That wow, fuck me.
That's cool.
You just said they are both based on books. I actually had no idea The Man Who Laughs was based on a book. I just learned
a book
that.
By Victor Hugo, nonetheless.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Who very famously wrote Les Mis and The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
I actually might have to check that book out. That's dope. Okay. So, The Man Who Laughs, directed by a guy named Paul Leany, who I think his second most popular film is a thing called The Cat and the Canary from 1927. I don't know, maybe not that much known. I've seen that. I didn't like it, but it's another spooky little haunted house flick. Goofier than what we are talking about today, though. Starring the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Conrad Veidt. He was a big one in the films back in the day. I think his biggest role probably in the classic Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is, you know, one of the, I feel like, most talked about films of the time there back then. I think a contender for first horror movie and whatever the fuck. He has a prominent role in that. And I love the guy. I've seen a bunch of things. He has a minor role in Casablanca. Might actually have been his last role, if I'm not mistaken. He has a major role in The Thief of Baghdad, which, if people haven't seen that one, that is an amazing flick of the time. So he's the star of the thing. Around him are people like Mary Philbin, who might be known for what I believe is the most iconic version of Phantom of the Opera in 1925, which, you know, has a lot of footage used as public domain, other things, I feel. And furthermore, people called Brendan Hurst, Olga Baklanova, Stuart Holmes, Josephine Cowell, and Zimbo the dog playing Homo the wolf. A fantastic name for a fantastic doggo. Written by a whole slew of people: J. Grubb Alexander, Walter Anthony, May McLean, Marion Ward, Charles E. Whittaker. Most of which have not, from what I've seen, done anything other than this movie. So, who knows? I think in an episode way before this, I already said, like, I would love how the writing process actually worked back in the day, because it seemed a lot of hands were in that soup back in the days a lot of times. And I wonder why.
I think there was definitely, like, in that kind of golden era of Hollywood, there was definitely a lot of like studios around everything, is my understanding. So some studio exec probably said, "Hey, we want to do this Victor Hugo book. We'll make that into a film," and just kind
Mm,
of put staff on it, kind of thing. It's a bit less kind of I'm an auteur and I want to make this movie.
right. Yeah. Okay.
There's probably still that too. I'm very generalizing, obviously, but yeah, I kind of feel like that might be why there's like loads of writers on these things, because it just gets passed through lots of hands or something. So
Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. Yeah. So this flick, yeah, it is about a tragic character. Um, gosh. So the very basic is it's about a character who has a prominent smile carved on his face due to his parents being his his parents were executed as part of as rebel. Okay, fucking hell. His parents were executed as rebels to the monarchy, and he, as a child, was, as punishment, disfigured basically with a permanent smile. And the film now follows him as a grown up, as he lives with a sort of, traveling freak show kind of thing where he is the star attraction. Everybody loves the man who laughs and whatever. Meanwhile, he is, the crying clown trope, basically, where he is suffering from never being taken seriously. He has very strong, self doubt, self worth issues. He is in love with a blind woman that he grew up with, who is also part of the group. And she is in love with him as well, but he does not feel like he deserves that love as, whatever the prominent clown that he is and what else. And, the story eventually grows into uh, an act where the current monarchy finds out that he's apparently the actual heir of the throne, and there's a scheme of marrying him to the current duchess. So he takes that as, finally somebody loves me. That means I deserve the love. But the blind woman that actually loves him sees it as betrayal and whatnot. We got a bit of romantic drama, and he is pulled between, existences and whatever, not sure what to believe. And that is
mm.
the core of the plot. Um, the real focus is his inner turmoil. And I think, the gothic theme, as we have already said, often like taken as like a very nebulous thing that many people can't really pinpoint, me included. So this is also before we actually talked about this, something that felt gothic to me. I couldn't really pinpoint it, though. Rewatching it now, there is some similarities to one of the great gothic classics, Frankenstein, with just like the misunderstood.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So I thought like, yep, this fits. I chose right. And it has that, though, with a completely different perspective. I feel different strain of existentialism. So to still, I feel well enough differentiated from Frankenstein or whatever, not being like a derivative, whatever, spin-off. The atmosphere is just okay. For the most part, the atmosphere I feel is really strong and engaging. There's I feel especially early on a lot of great just framing in the filmmaking with the sets and probably a lot of matte paintings or whatever really put into on the screen in a every frame a painting kind of deal, like a lot of cool visuals. Later on, even some cool simple special effects. There was one scene that I loved where the man who laughs is doing his little show on the stage with everybody, the whole crowd laughing at him for his freakazoid smile or whatever. And the big duchess is the special guest of honor in like one of the upper rows and is the only one just staring at him, not laughing at all. And we get this super cool shot of the whole crowd with like a wavy effect. And laid on top of that, the close up of the duchess's face the crowd is all laughing, but his focus is on her the whole time with her unsettled expression, and it was so fucking strong. And again, for the time, for 1928, an effect like that is just really cool. Uh,
Mm.
really, really appreciated that. Um, the performances are dope. Now, here's the thing: I don't think the smile itself that Conrad Veidt, the actor, has on is a prosthetic. I think he genuinely has to crack that fucking smile the entire time he's on the screen. He does have prosthetic teeth to make it more prominent, but like the smile itself is genuine, and I cannot imagine how much his cheeks must have hurt after shooting hours. But like I find his performance of um, expressing a lot of sorrow and sadness and fear, despite having this massive grin on his face, like it's so good. He really nails that, in my opinion, and that obviously
Mm.
carries a lot of the film, I think. Um, um, yeah, you really feel the whole sad clown thing, and it's also completely aside. Um, I've heard this a long time ago. I don't even know where, but from what I know, the creator of the Batman villain Joker cited this guy as the origin point, the inspiration, and you can totally see that as well. I feel, which is it's
Yeah.
like, especially I feel with the more recent Joker films, with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker films, there's a lot
Yeah.
of similarities with these two characters, which is really strong in how it's just depicted in this film. Yeah, I love this movie. I think it has some pitfalls. I think it does fall into some unnecessarily goofy action and some slapstick that might not have to be there. Especially like the last act kind of loses me with some really goofy like chase sequence that seems to go on forever. Kind of doesn't really fit the vibe that I want from this. But most of the time, I generally love this film, even on a rewatch still. Okay, I blabbered a lot. I want to know what the hell you thought about this.
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much agree with you all over, which is obviously not too insightful. But with that, you're talking about the I guess more kind of campy, slapsticky elements of like the big chase scene at the end and that sort of thing. And that's kind of the stuff that I love about this era, about 1920s films or that sort of thing. And similar ones like with Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin as well. There's all these amazing practical effects or stunts, I guess, which they did themselves. And while Buster Keaton is basically that's all he does, like wall to wall stunts. This was cool because there was a few in there where it's like, oh, cool. They actually like did that little trick to make you think that he was going to fall,
Mhm.
from a great height or something. He actually was a bit of a camera perspective trick or something like that. And, you kind of fell off a wall, but then got dragged back up or, something like that. And I really love that stuff because it's just, it's very, theatrical, I guess, in a way,
Oh yeah,
because it's that era as well. And I think that goes for both films that we're talking about this week, where
yeah,
they're both quite theatrical because it's that era where a lot of cinema is basically just filmed theater.
yeah.
And I like that, like you say, with the effects of during that show where it goes all wavy and stuff as well, the all those sorts of things like special effects or stunts or, you know, cool bits like that are all, I find them a lot more charming and interesting than even some like hardcore computer graphics these days, because the way they do them and the way that you have to make those things happen are either, you know, general photography tricks or perspective tricks,
Mhm.
or, it looks like, yeah, you're about to fall from a great height, but you're actually not, and things like that. And I don't know, that stuff to me just feels really cool because it's a bit more genuine, I suppose. It's like favoring practical effects over
Yeah,
special
yeah, yeah.
computer graphics and stuff, because we can, our brains are actually quite good at recognizing something that's real or not. And this sort of era, most of the stunts and all that were quite real, even if they were just, playing with our perception a bit. And they're actually quite clever when you think about it. So I love all that sort of stuff. So that's great. I'm glad there was a good portion of that in this one.
Okay.
You're right as well. I did really think that obviously, Victor Hugo writing the book or the way they've interpreted certain elements of the film, it does borrow a lot from Frankenstein. You can see it's very,
Mhm.
very inspired by it, or at least in that same tradition.
Yeah.
It's not copying it directly or anything, but it's got a very similar kind of, overall meta uh, narrative or story, I guess is the whole thing.
Even up to the
Where,
pitchforks and
yeah.
torches crowds in the end.
But I like that this one also included, it wasn't just, oh, here's this freak but they have humanity within themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
It was also the whole thing of, that forced smile. I think there was a line right at the beginning before we even meet the main character as a child, because we start off with essentially the king and his jester, like the very, very, very first scene. And there's a line about the jester, which is that it goes something along the lines of his jests were either insincere or, evil, and
Mhm.
his smile was always false or something like that. And because it's quite poetically written as well in parts. And
Yeah.
I remember that line stood out because I really loved that performance in the beginning as well from the actual jester. I thought he was rad.
Yeah.
Small part, but yeah.
No, he was awesome. Played by Brendan Hurst. He was amazing. I love the guy.
Yeah, that was just so cool. And it kind of set up that whole thing of the jester is performing to look like he's that kind of sad clown kind of thing, where he might have a false smile, he might be falsely playing around because that's his job, but there's that kind of insincerity and double layer coming in even from that angle. And then we get to our main character, obviously, who's kind of forced to smile all the time, and obviously isn't always happy. And
Yeah.
it is kind of a creepy image as well throughout, because someone smiling all the time isn't obviously very natural. So there's definitely this uneasiness the whole time the dude's on screen.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
And
it's not a pretty smile with the prosthetic teeth either. Like they they went full force with that.
yeah, and I found it even, I think maybe because I agree, it seemed like he was actually doing it,
Yeah.
and maybe they did something like put some cotton in his cheeks or something to kind of
Maybe.
help. But it did look like he was actually putting it on, and just walking around trying to smile as hard as he could every day. and and to me that looked creepier than, say, like modern jokers and stuff
Yeah.
who have makeup and whatever to show things. But yeah, just having that literally forced smile on his face really looked painful and
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and like tense and strained, I guess, which is kind of the point. And so I think it really played into the whole story, whether or not they would have done it any different anyway because of the time and that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure how much they're into special effects makeup that could have done it instead of him doing it himself. But yeah. Sorry, I'm getting a little distracted because there are fireworks going on right outside my window. So if you can't hear that, that's fine.
No, I hadn't heard that.
Press on.
Weird.
But yeah, I really enjoyed also well, before we get to anything else, the whole, again, I think this is kind of a symptom of the era. Something I didn't like about this particular story was kind of the setup.
Mhm.
Like I say, I really like that first bit with the jester and that sort of stuff, but then they get into this contrived story about basically trying to justify why this dude has this smile.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
forget the actual name, but it was basically there's a group of gypsies who steal children
The
and
Compra Chicos.
operate on them. Yeah. and they, get driven out of the land, and they leave this kid behind, and he grows up to become the dude. And it's just a very, very contrived kind of beginning to say, look, see, there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I felt the same.
Which is
yeah.
cool. That's fine. That happens a lot in modern films as well as older films. So,
Yeah.
it's not really a huge criticism. It just kind of felt a bit like, okay, we're doing the intro part. Cool. Let's get past that and see what else is on the cards. But yeah, I really love the soundtrack, I have to say. It might seem funny saying that on a silent film where it's basically the only audio is the soundtrack. However, some of them are pretty crap, but this one I really liked. There was some really good moments of the music really, taking you along for the ride, which is what it's there for. And yeah, really, it stood out as really good, I guess, suppose, while I was watching it. So I wanted to mention that as well, because I did actually take some notes.
With the soundtracks to a silent film, I always wonder, where they added, because obviously we're not hearing what the fuck was played when it was actually played at the time of release. So yeah,
that would be an interesting idea to find out just how authentic
if
the soundtracks that we see
possible.
are when they're committed to tape or to to film.
Right.
Yeah, because obviously they would have had a more live kind of soundtrack. But either way, I thought the one that was on this was good.
Yeah.
It did the job and kept me interested. Because sometimes they can be a bit either just like kind of boring whatever background noise, or even just over the top melodrama kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think the soundtrack was fine and all, but it didn't have, it enhanced the slapstick moments with the goofy music, and that didn't help my experience. So
I like that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's not. Yeah, it's not amazing in so much as, oh wow, there was this theme or motif that played throughout that really hooked me in or anything. No, it wasn't anything like that, but it did its job. I felt well enough. I guess it's a bit of a cop out way to say it, but
no, but you're right. I agree.
But yeah, ultimately, other than that, though, I really liked the film. I really liked I thought the performances, like you say, were really good, especially from, is it Conrad Veidt?
Veidt. Yes.
Veidt? Yep. Yeah,
Legend.
he was rad and did carry the film quite well. His, like you say, his blind companion, I really like. Again, this is probably unintentional, I guess, at the time, but I really liked her look because it was that very 1920s look.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very much that 1920s damsel kind of look.
Yeah, the doll face kind of thing.
Yeah. And just as a novelty, I dig that because I'm like, oh, cool.
Sure, yeah.
So that definitely wasn't intentional, but yeah. Yeah, I don't really have heaps to say because, I mean, on one hand, though, if I was going to be super critical and mean, I'd say it does kind of fall flat in a few places. And
sure,
there were definitely some scenes or sequences where I was like, yeah, okay, let's move on now. Let's do something else.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked.
But that's more, I think, it being dated kind of stuff.
We have talked off mic that we were both surprised how long these two movies were. And yeah, I agree that in this one, at least, there was definitely room to cut stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But again, I think that's also very much a product of the era because, I can, that's what I mean. I can forgive a lot of stuff when I'm looking at a film that's almost 100 years old. Like, I don't mind the pacing differences or like, there's bits where I'll be like, okay, you could have cut this scene a bit. We could do without it. Because I also remember that this is essentially, they're filming a theatre show, which is how they did it back in the day, because that's how they understood it, was we'll basically perform it like a theatre performance, but it'll be quite an elaborate one that we'll film and do lots of different, scenes and locations and stuff. So yeah. But yeah, I liked it. It's a bit of there's nothing really super, I think, outstanding for me, but there's also nothing really terrible either. Like it's a very kind of better than middle of the road, but it didn't blow my head off, but it also was very enjoyable. So
yeah, I think for me, it's actually
definitely fit the theme.
I'm glad to get your approval as the expert. This is definitely one of the films that made silent films and films of the era, like 100-year-old films, like very like interesting to me. This is like one of the top experience I had many years ago that
Yeah,
you
cool.
know proved to me, yeah, this shit that's worth digging out and whatever. I wanna
Yeah,
shout out one scene that I found really cool. They had a POV shot where they put the camera into the crowd as they approach the show, and you follow the crowd and the crowd members, like they point at you as the viewer and talk to you as the viewer and whatever. Like a really cool just little sequence for the immersion, I guess. I love that
mm,
shit. And what I found really interesting, this, back in the day, the credits were in front of the film. This one has as well, but they
yeah.
also had an extra credit roll after the film, the modern way, with a little note saying, this is repeated at the request of picture patrons who desire to check the names of performers whose work has pleased them. And I wonder, like, whether or not maybe this film has been part of the change or whatever, popularized maybe the post-film credits or whatever. I have not researched this, but it made me curious
Yeah.
about that. Don't really see that
I feel like
back then.
it was still decades after this before it even
Yeah,
began to be normalized to put credits after the
probably.
film, which doesn't mean this didn't have an influence, but it could have been some of the first instances of that, sure.
Yeah, ahead of its time, a trailblazer.
Yeah. Because, yeah, definitely into the 40s and 50s, there were still films with,
Hmm.
all their credits up front,
Yeah.
if not even later, because, yeah. Anyway, that's an
Oh,
interesting
also,
idea. Yeah.
I guess last point, since this was a silent film, shout out to the text plates. They were pretty, and there was variety in where you read text. That's always a nice
Well,
thing in these films.
and I think the thing you were saying about that shot, like the POV shot and stuff, there were
Mhm.
some cool like or
Yeah.
innovative ideas in this as well. Like, yeah, they were trying to get creative and they were trying to do different things like that. And even with some of the text as well, they use some like camera zooms and stuff to make the text kind of bounce out to you and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, as goofy and dated or whatever it is it might seem these days, it's still really cool because you can kind of it's the kind of thing where you can see their thinking behind it.
Yep. Yep.
Where they're like, oh man, what if we try this and that'll be cool and it'll this will be a different idea and let's see see if it works and probably hasn't been done very much before then, which is always very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, very very enjoyable.
Love this shit. Yeah. So, what number would you put on this almost 100-year-old film?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have to say I kind of feel sorry I don't have heaps more to say about it because I feel like it kind of hits the notes that it hits, and that's kind of where it ends with me as well.
Mhm.
Not in a bad way. This is and again, I'm going to give a very unsatisfying score as well because for me, this is a big 3.5 out of
Oh.
5, 7 out of 10, which is a very kind of middling score, I know, but I think it's definitely sits there. Like it doesn't. Again, for me personally, it's not one that I'm like, oh man, everyone has to go see this film. Unlike something, say like I forget the name now, but there was a Buster Keaton one which I love, which is from about 1910ish or something, and that's one where I'm like, yeah, everyone should watch this fucking film because it's amazing when it comes to practical effects and stunts and all that kind of thing for the era as well.
Yeah, Buster
And
Keaton rules. Yeah.
I mean, the man is. I
Legend.
love him more than Charlie Chaplin as well, and I think
Me
Charlie Chaplin's a
too.
genius too.
Yeah.
But but Buster did some amazing stunts, and
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, we're not talking about him, but
Unfortunately.
well, maybe we should one day. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's someone I think. Yeah, everyone. I don't care if it's over 100 years old. Go watch his films. This
Yeah.
one, if you have an interest in this sort of thing, then definitely go watch it because it's cool. And that's what I mean. There's nothing wrong with it per se or anything. It just didn't stand out as much as something else. But I'm also being very critical because I'm not watching every film from the era either. Like I only watch stuff that kind of does stand out anyway. So, that's where I think my 7 is it's a bit middling, but it hits the mark for me anyway. as in it's good. It's definitely over a halfway. It's over a 2.5 or something. But it's not quite, oh my God, this is cool. Other people have to see this right now kind of thing. If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. You know, when I watched this film for the first time and the last time in 2014, that's 11 years ago. And back then I gave it a 7 out of 10 as well. On this
Nice.
rewatch, like my rating is going up for sure. I'm putting this at 9 out of 10 because I'm genuinely
Wow.
realizing this is one of my favorite silent films ever.
Yeah, cool.
It could have even been a 10 out of 10, I think, if the slapstick stuff was a bit less, not gone completely, but a bit less, and the final act could have been shortened.
Yeah,
But
that's funny.
no, I love this film. I recommended this before already, but especially now, I would totally recommend this as a silent film if people are looking into exploring silent films. And also,
Mm.
if people are interested in Conrad Veidz's cinematography, who is a bit of a
Yeah.
legend, this I feel like might be, in my opinion, his strongest performance from what I have seen, the handful of things I have seen so far. Love
Cool.
this film, love this vibe. Oh yeah, and of course, if you just want to see the origin of Batman's Joker, here you go as well. I
Yeah.
think it's worth the
See
exploration.
that didn't. Yeah, that didn't jump out. You'd mentioned that to me before I watched it as well, and like it didn't really land for me.
Yeah,
Like I can
I
kind of
was.
see. Yeah, it's. There's obviously a thread you can pull there, but
I was like, dude, there was some shots of the guy that just like one to one reminded me of some comic book covers and whatever. And like I
yeah,
said, especially the Joaquin Phoenix films, that character is so close to this guy's whole plot and whatever. No, I can totally see where this come from. And even the Chester early on with his evil hijinks felt very, very truly DC Joker-esque to me.
yeah. I guess to me that just feels like generic kind of
Fair.
villain kind of tropes, like. uh, but yeah, and it's interesting as well, just what you said then about how the things that let you down are like the slapstick parts and that, where
Yeah.
that didn't let me down at all. What held me back on my score is there are some sequences which I feel do drag and are a bit flat
Yeah.
and don't really add anything or take a while to actually add anything. And yeah, that's the bit that kind of gives me pause. Uh, whereas like the more kind of the era jokes and or tropes and that sort of stuff, I actually quite enjoy. And even though they are a bit goofy or whatever, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah. No, I get it. Dope.
it's good though. That's what I mean. It is still really good, and yeah, like you say, if anyone is interested in silent film or early cinema and that sort of stuff, this is definitely one
Yeah.
that's worth watching. It's you don't have to stay away at all.
Hell yeah. All right. So let's move on to
Yeah.
your pick of this episode.
Oh my god, yes.
Oh my
Let's.
gosh.
So I put up the 1940 classic called Rebecca,
So
which
recent.
is another film. Well, there's actually and I'm going to watch it now, but I don't think it'll be as good for many, many reasons.
Yeah.
There's a 2020 version that someone made
Yeah, I noticed.
when I was looking around about this film, and I'm like, all right, I'll check it out. But after watching this film properly from start to finish, because I think I mentioned last time, I have seen parts of this film, and I do know the story because it's a classic. It's based on a novel, this time by an author called Daphne du Maurier, who, if you know classic literature, you should have heard of her. Basically, let's put it that way. And this is like a very classic, more modern Gothic literature novel, and yeah, I feel like the adaptation into film is actually quite, from what I know about the novel, because I haven't read it, and from what I know about Daphne du Maurier as well, it does feel quite accurate and well done, which is not surprising because this is directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Who, for better or worse, is a legend for a reason. And I think there's lots of parts in this film that show, yep, this is why Hitchcock is the man. And not to mention, it's starring in our leading roles. We've got Laurence Olivier, who is again another legend. Joan Fontaine, who's the lead female as well, and she's probably potentially like the lead if you were going to pick one. Although Laurence Olivier is kind of there as well, but I feel like it's more focused on Joan Fontaine's character than anyone else. But then also just there's a few other supporting roles who did well as well. I think we've got George Sanders, Judith Anderson, Nigel Bruce, and Reginald Denny. And again, another film with like a whole bunch of writers for the film. We've got Philip McDonald, Joan Harrison, Robert E. Sherwood, and Michael Hogan, who wrote the script. Again, I feel like it's more like a script by committee as opposed to, anything else, because it's like, these 4 writers adapted the novel basically. So a lot of the writing credit has to go to the original author, I think, to Daphne du Maurier for basically writing the film, the story, I should say, and the concepts and all that kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, basically the idea of the story, to try and sum it up, is that Joan Fontaine's character, who now I'm blanking on everyone's names because that's what happens when I get put on the spot. Let me just pull this up here real quick. So Joan Fontaine's character, which in the credits I've got as Mrs. De Winter, which doesn't help. I was looking for her first name.
I don't remember either. Yeah.
She's on holiday as kind of like a carer for like an assistant or something for an older lady. And they bump into this guy who's Laurence Olivier, who's Mr. De Winter. And, they basically hit it off. They start flirting with each other. They, have a very 1940s kind of courtship, I guess.
You could say that for sure. Yeah, very 1940s.
Which is something to talk about, definitely.
Yeah.
And they basically hit it off. And before they leave their holiday and everything, he proposes marriage to her, and they get married and go back to his rich ass estate in the country or wherever, and where he's got a mansion and staff and all this kind of thing, and he's like super rich dude. And she very quickly figures out that he is a widower, and his ex-wife, or now deceased wife, is called Rebecca, and there's very much her presence is in the house and in his life, because all the staff at his house and everything remember her and always talk about her. In particular, a housemaid, I guess, or whatever her name is, Mrs. Danvers, played by Judith Anderson, who I think is fucking rad. I just want to say, as a performance, her character is obviously a big fan of Rebecca when she was the lady of the house.
Big fan,
and she kind of messes with the new Mrs. De Winter, like Joan Fontaine's character, by going on about how great Rebecca was when she was around. And there's this whole wing of the house that is still all of her things and set up with all her, her bedroom and her clothes and her little trinkets and all that kind of stuff, almost like a bit of a kind of shrine to her memory and all that kind of thing. And so, Joan Fontaine's character then, as the new Mrs. De Winter, has to kind of deal with this kind of guilt and presence of this woman who doesn't exist anymore, but trying to live up to it and trying to, make a home there and settle in. And she's kind of a bit of an immature character as well, because she's like a young girl who's married this older guy, and she's not very perhaps confident in standing up for herself and all that kind of thing. And she's a bit more like naive and romantic, and can be easily misled as well. Like there are parts where the housekeepers literally give her misinformation to make her fuck things up.
Yeah.
So that, the relationship between her and Laurence Olivier will be kind of strained and, make things difficult for them, all that kind of thing. And then about, we hit Act 3 and the rug gets fucking pulled out from underneath you. And you've been going along with this kind of like semi-romance story, and then like, the shit hits the fan, and it takes a big 180, and the whole story just kind of throws you on your head and becomes something completely different, that I wasn't expecting, where this memory of Rebecca gets totally twisted around, and we'll spoil it eventually, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it as a bit of an overview. And it really hits, then it like hits its stride as a gothic theme, and it goes from being this kind of uneasy, eerie, slow burn into a real edge of your seat thriller. For me anyway, like I'm like glued to the screen in the last third of the film kind of thing. I'm like, fuck man, this is gold. And yeah. And it's really cool. And we can get into that a bit as we go through, but I just want to give a shout out again to this being like a Hitchcock, and there are some amazing scenes in my view of cinematography and filmmaking, and again decisions they made. It's black and white as well as like the previous film, but I feel like this one uses a lot of darkness as well, and it's really dark in parts, I think on purpose, because it is meant to be a bit disorienting. And this is where I feel like this is known for being, it's not my assessment, this is known for being a classic gothic interpretation of the film. But I feel like a lot of that is because for that first kind of couple of acts, if not 3 acts, it seems all very normal on the surface.
Yeah.
But there is this kind of, there's a level of uneasiness where you're like, something's not right. Like something's fucked up here, and I'm not quite sure what it is yet. And I love that. It's like this little niggling. It's not even overt. It's not hitting you in the face. It gets more and more, I guess, obvious as time goes on. But especially from the very beginning through to that past the halfway mark, it's just this real slow burn of, okay, we're following these characters, we're following this story. Something doesn't feel right though. What's going on? Something's a bit silly. And then you figure it out and you're like, man, and they reveal it, like they blatantly reveal stuff to you through the character's exposition and that sort of thing. And you're just like, oh man. And then from that point on, I'm like, man, this is thriller gothic fucking 101. And I can see why it's so much regarded as a classic now. And I have to say, I did love Laurence Olivier's performance. I think he's a legend for a reason. I also love Joan Fontaine as well. And like I say, I love Judith Anderson, who was the housemaid. And, you know, the rest did a good job too. But I think those three in particular, I think stood out for really, like, they fucking nailed those characters as far as I'm concerned. Like, they were on it from the get-go, and just so satisfying to watch. And even within the context of the time where, a lot of the performances can be quite melodramatic at times and can be a bit over the top and does feel very hammy and, 1940s.
Yeah.
But that's the era, so whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I'll shut up for now. There's more I want to say, but because I fucking love this film.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in what you've got to say, Matt. How you thought about it?
So yeah, it is very 1940s. It was that's the style of the time, which comes with its pitfalls or whatever you want to call it, but also with its advantages. Like the film being made in that time inherently gives it a slower pace and a quieter atmosphere, and that, obviously fits perfectly the plot and the gothic elements of this. So that alone, I think gives it a lot of bonus stars. The atmosphere especially was immediately established so well with the first sequence of the camera moving through dark forests as the gloomy voiceover narration introduces us to what we're gonna see, and we move closer and closer to that destroyed estate at that point. And yeah, you said a lot of darkness is used. Yeah, I know this as well. There's a lot of cool use of lighting in general. A lot of harsh contrasts in that black and white. Yeah, you can tell it's a Hitchcock film, visually speaking. It's dope. And, most of the film is set in this one estate, but they know how to capture that huge building in really cool, interesting ways. So, yeah, from a cinematography standpoint, I enjoyed both of these films greatly. Like, a lot of visual goodness.
Yeah.
despite or, you know, especially because of the black and
Well,
white film.
not to interrupt you too much, but I think this is why I like kind of this era of cinema as well, because I feel like people making films at this time were thinking about those things a lot more
Mm,
and in different ways than people making films today, even because, you know, if you think about the big films of today, a lot of it, a lot of it's green screened, a lot of it's, post processed
right.
or whatever. Whereas, when Hitchcock's making films, he's literally whatever happens through the lens is what's on film. So he's got to think about all of those things, like,
Yeah.
practical lighting and camera moves and
Yeah.
effects and all this kind of stuff. So I think it lends to a different kind of approach, which is super, super cool, I think.
For sure. But even aside of that, there were some cool special effects as well. At least, one later
Yeah.
on, we have a burning building, and there's some really, for the time, impressive flame effects in addition to real flames. So that was a very strong scene, but that's like the very end of the movie. Um,
Mm.
the overall plot of a lady getting into a relationship and some mysterious backstory being afoot with the previous partner of the guy nowadays seems like a bit of a trope, but I'm sure this is one of the films that did it before it was a trope, so that's fine
Yeah.
and dandy. But I guess with that expectation, I did uh, expect some dark shit or a death, an unfortunate, more unfortunate death than was already, you know,
Mm.
intended at the beginning to be revealed at later points. So I was not like surprised by it, but I do respect the twists and turns it takes in the final act, to make it engaging for sure, because it does
Yeah.
do a couple of potential reveals,
Yeah.
um, and not just giving you what actually happened straight up in the final act.
Well, surprisingly, I don't like it when characters are literally there telling you what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, However, this is what I think is a strength to say someone like Laurence Olivier, and kind of speaks to why he's such a legend in the acting space. Because there's a scene later on where it's just him and Joan Fontaine, and he's telling her all about what has actually happened with his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And spoilers ahoy, turns out that he actually murdered her. And before that, it's all, oh, you poor thing, your wife had a terrible accident and died. But then he reveals to her body gets discovered later on. And so now he's worried that they're going to find out that he actually murdered her, which puts a whole different spin on it, because it turns out he hated her and they had a really bad relationship. Meanwhile, Joan Fontaine's character the whole time has got this whole psychological fucked up manipulation thing, thinking that everyone loves Rebecca so much and she can never live up to her and all this kind of thing. So they have this really cool scene, which is probably my favorite scene in the whole film, where Laurence Olivier reveals all of this and tells the story to Joan Fontaine and talks about what happened the night that they got into this big argument, and it was kind of an accident, but then he kind of ended up killing her anyway and leaving her for dead. And, as he's telling that scene, his whole monologue, I'm just like fucking gripped, man. Like, I don't want to look away. I'm like, I'm eating up every single word. And there's also probably my favorite camera shot in the whole film as well, where they're in this room, which is like a kind of an outhouse, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, if you want to call it that, or a
Little beach house
detached
thing.
building
Yeah.
on the estate, which was Rebecca's kind of little private place. And so he's describing how they get into this argument, and the camera goes to kind of look at the point in the room where he's saying that's where she was. And then the camera moves and follows her as he's saying, she stood up and moved over here or something. So the camera makes an obvious, pan up and then pan over to the left to where she was walking and stuff. And it's one of those moves where it's like you can tell that they are moving the camera
Yeah.
and it's not just part of the scene, but in the most genius way, because it kind of, you end up really visualizing the story that he's telling you, because you're getting that camera movement even though there's nothing on screen other than just the room that they're looking around. And I just love that shit. That stuff's awesome.
Yeah, no, that was
But
dope. Like
yeah,
replaying a scene basically without the characters being there, just through the camera movement.
yeah.
That was dope. Yeah,
But that's why I thought like Laurence Olivier's performance was just so compelling as well, because he just had me hooked
funny.
that whole time. And yeah,
It's funny.
it was really strong.
Maybe I'm the contrarian again or whatever. I just don't have taste. But actually, I thought Laurence Olivier's performance was fine, but like I didn't think it was like the strongest one. I think like in the final act, he definitely gets much more room to shine as things ramp up. But I think
Yeah,
up until then, I felt his performance rather one note, although to be fair, also possibly on purpose because he's supposed to be a
yeah.
mysterious character. But
And
like,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, but like,
I think his character definitely in the beginning is very, yeah, one note.
yeah. I agree that what's her name? Judith Anderson, who you called your favorite, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
she definitely did a lot to this film with her performance. But I think my absolute favorite, honestly, was what's his name? George Sanders playing Jack Favell, Rebecca's favorite cousin.
Yeah.
Shows up.
He was really good
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
shows up especially later on, trying to investigate and reveal what actually happened with Rebecca's demise. And he's just like a really, colorful expression. A fella with really colorful expression and like really a character with energy and whatever. He was super fun. I
Yeah.
love this guy.
100% agree.
Also added a bit of humor to this unsettling story, which is neat. And actually, I guess to compare, here that humor was in the right amount and actually worked to enhance the story. Unlike for me, the slapstick in the Man Who Laughs.
Yeah, fair. Well, yeah, I mean, I think in Rebecca, it kind of, yeah, his character, I feel like it added to the tension because he kind of relieves that tension for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it does have that kind of nice dynamic of when he shows up initially, you do have suspicion because you're suspicious about everything at the time. But you kind of go, well, who is he? And like the housekeeper says, oh, don't tell Laurence Olivier's character about it because he'll get mad. And then you find out why, because later on you're like, oh, okay, cool. He was having an affair with his wife kind of thing.
Mhm.
And later in the film, he, like you say, tries to expose him and all this kind of stuff. So he ends up having a bigger role later on as you learn more about him. But the whole time you're like suspicious of him.
Yeah.
But because of his nature and his character and he is, like you say, much more jokey and stuff, it kind of relieves that tension only so that, in my view, when it does come back, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, there's all this tension happening. So it kind of reminds you that you're in there kind of hooked on this kind of thriller aspect of the film. Yeah. And that's what like I say, Judith Anderson was one of my favorites. I don't know if she was necessarily the greatest performance ever because her character was so over the top anyway, and just
but very crucial to this film for sure.
Oh, she's central to the story, no doubt, but she's very much a caricature almost of a character. Like she's ridiculous in many ways.
Yeah.
And over the top. But I kind of like that, and I feel like her performance as well was just so, yeah, you felt it when she was making moves, kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But by the same token, I really liked Joan Fontaine as well because I thought she was well cast for the role, and very that kind of damsel, charismatic, innocent, young girl figure. But then throughout the film, she does develop and she becomes a bit more mature and grown up. And there's even a line in it about her character, and someone says, "Oh well, you've actually changed and you've finally grown up," or something, because she kind of takes charge of her life a bit more and her role.
Yeah, but not to the liking of Laurence Olivier's character. That was so funny to me, the whole film.
Well, I think it's worth saying, like, especially in the beginning when they're like courting, it's so like 1940s gender roles. Because
he literally says things like, "It's a pity you have to grow up. Promise me to never be 36." Like that whole thing. Yeah. He really adores her for being young as fuck. It's so off the time.
And even when he's like, quote unquote courting her and flirting and stuff, he's like, ordering her about, like,
Yeah.
you're not doing that, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Or like, make sure you do that like womanly job kind of thing.
Yeah.
I can't even think of it because it's just so ridiculous now. But thankfully it's the kind of stuff that, for me anyway, I can just kind of forgive as part of the era. I'm glad we've moved on since then, but at the time it was probably very charming for a man to take charge and tell you how it is kind of thing.
And it doesn't like disrupt, the character dynamic. It actually makes sense for these two characters to act this way towards each other. So it works.
Yeah. It kind of plays into her kind of innocence and naiveness.
Exactly, yeah.
Naivete, I should say.
Yep.
And his kind of stoicism or whatever. Because I think as well, like his character over time, like in the beginning, he seems very stoic and gruff and almost rude about everything. But by the end, once he's revealed all to her and everything, he's actually softens up a lot and he turns into a much nicer, more someone you can say, okay, yeah, he's actually a genuine kind of, this is a relationship I now believe, as opposed to where it started, where it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
What's going on? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoy this. Like, if you can't tell, I was super happy with this film.
Yeah, no,
This is like the shit.
Glad this made me watch it because this wasn't ever on my radar, I don't think.
Yeah.
And again, honestly, this was a great, learning lesson on what the fuck Gothic actually means. This was a perfect showcase for that shit. I really felt it.
On that note, I think because this isn't like, there's no freaks, there's no monsters, there's no ghosts that show up or anything, even though there's like this memory of a person. There's no manifestation of that. Like, they don't get surreal, they don't get spiritual or anything, or whatever. It's very much, they play it very straight and on the ground and authentic, I suppose. But it does lean into that whole psychological stress of where Joan Fontaine's character is, and how the housekeeper's kind of fucking with her, and everyone's kind of fucking with her, really, about the memory of this Rebecca. And it's that kind of that below the surface kind of uneasiness and unsettling vibe that I think is like so Gothic.
Yeah, it's the difference between eerie and scary, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, I'm learning that now.
Yeah. And like I think you said last time, I don't know if you said it during the episode or not, but you mentioned it would be nice to see a Hitchcock that you haven't really heard of before.
True. Yeah. And there we are.
Because we all know the big names, and I think that too. Like, it was really fun to watch because there's loads of shots and cinematography in this and everything where you think, oh yeah, this is Hitchcock. But in a kind of good way, because you're like, yeah, man, there's some clever hands behind this camera kind of thing. And
for sure.
Yeah, there were lots of scenes and sets and everything that was like, wow, yeah, this has been thought about and this is really working. And yeah, I really appreciated that too.
Yeah. No, this had everything going for it. The acting, the visuals, the vibe, the atmosphere. No, it was a good package.
What about how would you rate something like Rebecca?
Yeah, I think I'm at a clean 8 out of 10 with this one. Enjoyed this, yeah. And it makes me, it's really one of those films that make me wanna watch more films of the era. The films at that point, again, just had these dope, quiet, slower vibes, and I love that shit so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different scene to today. In some better ways, in some worse ways too.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting era and not to be overlooked just because it is old.
Exactly, yeah. How much
I would
do you
pretty
love
much
it?
agree.
Yeah.
I think I'd push it up to a 9. I was hovering between like an 8 or a 9, but I think it actually does fall on a 9 for me because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, fuck yeah, that was great.
I love this about these the thing that we do here. It seems like it's oftentimes heightens our individual appreciation for these films just by talking and thinking about it more. It's a cool side
Yeah.
effect. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of part of
Yeah.
why I talked to you about doing this in the first place, I think, because I
Yeah.
was like, man, that sounds like fun. And it is.
And
But,
you were right. Yeah.
but I reckon you're right. Yeah. It's kind of like I remember when I was studying at uni, and one of my lecturers said basically something along the lines of, you should always attend a lecture with a pen and paper in your hand,
Mm.
because even if you never write anything, if you have the intention to take notes, you'll interpret the information and you'll receive the information and retain it in a very different way than if you just kind of rock up to observe,
True. Yeah.
And I do think there's some obviously legitimacy in that, where like watching these films, I'm watching them with the intent of knowing I'm going to talk about it later.
Yeah.
So I do pay attention to points that stand out for me, or I do make a few notes about, wow, I really liked that, And so it's a much more active, I guess, experience than if I'm just passively watching a film that, I'm not really thinking about that much.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
which does happen a lot, but yeah. So yeah, it does kind of force you to think about it a little bit differently when you know you're going to be discussing it. So
You gotta have opinions to be made up and
Yeah, man.
expressed, dude. Fucked up.
even though I feel like I didn't really have much to say about The Man Who Laughs, because
Oh, that's fine.
I was just like, yeah, it was cool.
I
was good.
was satisfied by your opinions about it. And I was very satisfied by both these movies. Yeah, this was a good pair of things. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a great, good time. And I mentioned to Matt before we filmed, but I literally watched both of these before we filmed too, like this afternoon. Back to back, I watched like 4 hours of awesome movies.
Yeah, dopest double feature for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a rad double feature, in fact, like watching them together as well. Just, yeah, I had a great day today. 'Cause that was rad.
Hell yeah.
I did work earlier, but came home and watched a couple of dope films, and now I'm here talking to my buddy. So, hey, what could be better? But
Now we are the men who laugh.
now we will have the laugh, the last laugh.
Dope. Okay.
Yeah, definitely makes me want to read the books too. Because
Yeah.
personally, like I think I've already got Rebecca on my shelf to read, because I've got a bunch of Daphne du Maurier's, because I've read a couple. But yeah, it makes me want to check out Man Who Laughs as well, because I'm interested to see how that would translate into a book form.
Yeah, that I'm really
Perhaps
interested
more so
in.
than Rebecca. So yeah, I'll have to check that out sometime.
Hell yeah. So,
Anyway,
I guess it's time to reveal the theme for next episode and our picks for it.
Mhm.
So,
Hell yeah. I'm
the theme for next episode is going to be bottle movies. So, flicks in very, very limited locations, maybe just one actually. And I'm gonna reveal mine first here. I didn't think I would make you read even more subtitles, but I think this is gonna be the fourth film in a row with subtitles. But it is genuinely.
I just want to, before you do get into it, I just want to say that is not a problem for me. I watched many films with subtitles.
That's good.
I know you've qualified pretty much every time, but it's like, dude, I'm here for it. Bring it on, motherfucker.
That's good.
Subtitles do not bother me one little bit.
So there's a couple bottle movies that I really love, and I was thinking about just maybe getting you, because apparently you haven't seen this, the possibly greatest German film of all time, Das Boot. But I actually decided not to pick that almost 4-hour long thing for you. Instead, I'm making you suffer even more, though, with the Spanish horror movie Rec, REC, all set in one apartment building. You're gonna fucking
I've
hate
seen
this.
I've definitely seen this on lists and things.
It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's definitely like at top of the list of favorite bottle movies of all time. It's incredible.
I think I've seen like 2 Spanish horror films before, and they were fucking horrific. Like,
yeah, this one is spooky.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this at all.
Yeah, I know.
At all. Oh, at least it's only 78 minutes. That's a small mercy.
Yeah, it's short. Are you gonna make me suffer in return?
No, you're going to have a great time. Sorry, I'm just looking at the page for Rec now, and I'm like, man, I have seen this film around, and I do not want to watch it.
Spooky little found footage flick.
Although, you know,
it's a modern Blair Witch.
I'm down for it. I'm down for it being great, even if it's not my particular taste or genre. If that makes sense. Anyway, for my one, I am going to make you watch the 1995 multiple directors film cult classic known as 4 Rooms.
4 Rooms. Have I heard of this before? Let me see.
Potentially. It stars Tim Roth as a bellhop in a hotel, and it basically takes place in this whole hotel in an evening. And not to give too much away right now, but basically, as a name infers, it takes place in 4 rooms in the hotel, and each room is a different director.
That's cool.
Which is interesting.
That is a very interesting concept.
And for our directors, we've got Robert Rodriguez, Alexandra Rockwell, Alison Anders, and Quentin Tarantino.
Oh gosh, I can't wait to see them feed. Yeah, no, dope. I'm actually interested in this for sure.
Yeah, I love this film. But yeah, it's one of those ones that it is a bit of a cult classic. Like, it doesn't really come up on any lists. Like, especially on these directors as well. Like, you know, there's always Tarantino lists about Tarantino films that you should watch. This doesn't even get mentioned like he even worked on it. But he literally did direct a quarter of the film.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really interesting in that sense. And they're quite diverse as well. And, you know, anyway, we'll talk about it later. But
at least since we now have a horror movie and a comedy, you can, you know, get the shit out of the way with the horror movie and then lighten your mood afterwards with the comedy. Get that double feature going.
But yeah, I love this film. I'm looking forward to hearing what you think.
Yeah, same for you with Rec. All right.
Could be a bit of a spicy one next time.
Yeah, I think so too.
We might not be so agreeable as we were this time.
Yeah, possible.
I might be angry.
Speaking of being angry, dear listener, if you're angry about something, let us know in whatever comment section you see fit. we might actually notice it.
We might actually notice it.
And I guess that is it for this episode. So,
yeah,
keep watching movies that are almost 100 years old and get good sleep. Goodbye.
Go get some Buster Keaton in your life.
Yes, exactly. Bye-bye.
See you later.